Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome back to the Sunday Matinee. This is episode. Oh, my itinerary is incorrect. I wrote 14. This is episode 16, but it is the first episode of the new year. And we're going to kick off the new year by talking about, I can't believe I'm about to say this, a new film. We haven't had a lot of those in the last, 9-ish months. But before we get started, let's go around the table here. And who's here today? Oh, looks like Andrea. Andrea Gordon is back. Welcome back, Andrea.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
And joining the show for the very first time is my sister, Catherine Stahl. Hello, Catherine.
Hello.
So let's see, before we get going into high gear here, remember you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/truth in film, at Twitter at Sunday_matinee, at YouTube, where you're watching this right now. So congratulations. Like, subscribe, do all the things. And since we're going to be talking about Wonder Woman today, I should probably mention that I did write a full written review, spoiler free, that is on the blog at WordPress or truthinfilm.wordpress.com. So so we're going to be talking about Wonder Woman. But before we do, gosh, I'm doing so much setup here. What do we have coming up for the rest of the year in 2021? Well, let's see. Next week, assuming that everything falls into place, we will be doing a sort of a best and worst of 2020. Not necessarily just movies, because there were not a lot of movies to rank here, but we did have a lot of best things and worst things happen last year. Not just in the movies, but in just life. Woo. But also on the schedule for this year that I know of, in May, I'm going to have a 2-episode special. The first is going to be a sort of pre-setup episode. We're going to be talking about the history of the 1962 Japanese film King Kong vs. Godzilla in order to prepare for the hopeful HBO release of Godzilla vs. Kong, assuming that Legendary Pictures doesn't, I don't know. There's a little, they're kind of pissed at Warner Brothers for announcing this whole HBO Max deal with Godzilla and with Dune without consulting them first. So we'll see it. We'll see if we get to see Godzilla at all this year. I'm really hoping we do. And then, of course, I've already talked about the big anniversaries we're going to be talking about in Halloween. Wolfman, Curse of the Werewolf, American Werewolf in London. So a big werewolf episode. And, of course, the original Dracula and Frankenstein are celebrating their 90th anniversary this year, which is crazy to think that for me and for Daniel, who was on the Universal Monsters episode, could live to see the 100th anniversary of those films, provided that certain viruses don't kill us first. And then at the end of the year, there is a really cool anniversary this year. So that all three of us, I'm sure, saw this in the theater 20 years ago when The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, debuted and changed cinema fantasy forever. And let's face it, nothing has been quite as good since then, not even The Hobbit. And of course, we will continue to be updating everyone on delays and reshuffles with films as it pertains to COVID and cinemas opening and closing. So including this one that dropped just this weekend. Not a big one, though, on the radar, I think. But for those of you who like your DreamWorks animated films, Boss Baby Family Business has been delayed from March 26th to September 17th. Probably COVID related. They didn't say why, but it's a pretty good guess. So I have a question for the both of you, since Day and I talked a little bit about this a few episodes ago. My question is, when do you think, all things considered at this point, when do you think we're going to be seeing cinemas back open in roughly full swing? Andrea, I'll go to you first.
Honestly, it depends on the state, because some of them already have cinemas open right now. But if you're talking about Washington State, because that's where we are, I'm assuming at the very, very earliest, the summer. It depends on how far we are with the vaccine and I mean, forgive my bluntness here, but the stupidity with the vaccine. Because, I mean, I'm not going to get into that, but y'all know what I'm talking about. So it honestly depends on everyone else and what they're doing. Realistically, I'm guessing not even until 2022 are the theaters going to reopen. But optimistically, the summer, and if not the summer, then probably like the fall or the winter for those fall winter blockbusters that usually come out around that time. But I think people are gonna want to get movies out there for the Oscars, which I don't know if those are happening at all. But if there's no movies coming out, there's not going to be any Oscars, so it's just kind of a matter of what's going to happen there. So it's just there's a lot of things up in the air. I don't have a definitive answer. I mean, nobody does, but my best guess is not going to be until 2022 because I don't think COVID's going to be under control, even in Washington State, much less America, until next year.
Catherine, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with so much of what you're saying. I think that people are going to try and rush it, which is what has been happening with this entire experience. And I would agree with that timeline of they're going to be like summer blockbusters of 2021. It was so weird to say 2021 coming out of my face right now. It's weird. But summer blockbusters of 2021, that's what we really want to do. It's what we want to bring all the people to. But I mean, yeah, I would hope that it would be before the end of the year, but also that's a selfish hope, and I want people to be safe first. So, yeah, I would say early 2022.
That is actually about in line with what Daya and I talked about. We're hopeful that, summer is a thing. But yeah, we both kind of agreed that possibly November, December, maybe the very earliest we can realistically see cinemas. And when I say reopen, I mean really reopen, and not just to this whole like 50% capacity stuff. Because like that's obviously the reason that Warner Brothers has been doing this big HBO thing is because 50% capacity really screwed over Tenet. And I don't think they want to see that again with too many more of their films. Which, yeah, it sucks. But we could see another summer surge at the drive-ins if this year was any indication. Maybe we will all be going to see Black Widow at a drive-in. If Marvel doesn't delay that anymore or just move it to Disney Plus. I will say, and we're starting to get a little bit into Wonder Woman here, I thought it was kind of weird to see that the Skyline Drive-In is still open and it's playing Wonder Woman. And like, as cool as it would be to go see a big movie like that on the big screen, if this weekend was any indication, it doesn't matter how good the movie is, no one was going to have a good time at a drive-in this weekend because here in Washington right now, it is hella rainy. So...
That does not sound like a good time.
So yeah, now that I've started talking a little bit about Wonder Woman, let's dive in to that very film that we're here to discuss, Wonder Woman 1984. So this is a spoiler cast. So if you haven't seen Wonder Woman 1984 and you want to go into it blind in any way whatsoever, this is the part of the show where you tune the heck out, go away, and then come back later when you've seen it, if you can see it. That's going to be a topic of discussion too, is are you able to watch Wonder Woman? Because they're not making it easy for everybody. So gosh, what happens in Wonder Woman 1984? Well, it opens up back on Themyscira with a young Diana in a contest of champions, and it was a really cool prologue. Absolutely blew me out of the water. It was probably one of my favorite parts of the whole movie. And then we jump into 1984, and the world is very 80s-ish. And Diana is working at the Smithsonian, which we already knew from the end of the first film. But we're introduced to Barbara Minerva, played by Kristen Wiig, who is coming in to work Not alongside Diana, but it's obvious that Kristen Wiig is once again playing that sort of dorky character that she always plays. Um, and she and Diana connect, and that's also a really cool scene early on where they're connecting. But this crazy magic wishing stone shows up at the Smithsonian, and Diana is, of course, very curious about this mysterious stone, and just happens to wish Steve Trevor back to life. And Barbara also makes a wish on the stone, and enter Maxwell Lord, played by the always fun Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian himself. And he seems to know what the stone can do, and he is intent on getting his hands on it, and he does. And he wishes himself to become the stone. And that's when things start to get a little chaotic. Because every time someone makes a wish, it kind of drains a little bit of his life force. But he also takes something. It's a monkey's paw thing, which is really easy to figure out early on. I don't know why it takes our heroes so long to figure this part out. But yeah, it's a total monkey's paw thing going on. And he, of course, is trying to get his oil company to become huge because he's been faking it this whole time. There's no oil. He's a con man, but he uses this monkey's paw to suddenly find success, and suddenly it just sort of the obsession of granting more wishes and becoming sort of, I don't know, the ultimate crazy life force on the planet, the ultimate genie, if you will, kind of takes hold. Meanwhile, Barbara is becoming amazing like Diana, but at the cost of her own humanity. And as things sort of start to come together, Barbara realizes that Diana needs to destroy the stone, and she needs to become, basically she becomes Maxwell Lord's bodyguard. And so that's how the two villains eventually sort of come together. And then we just have this big, insane comic book movie climax that you just have to expect at this point. And then, but hey, it's a comic book movie, so Diana wins in the end, but it just kind of ends, and it was really weird like that. So, my goodness, Catherine, you and I watched this together over the holiday break.
Truth.
What were your impressions of this film?
Yeah, so we've chatted about it, and I have had the chance to chat with a couple other people. I loved the opening sequence. I just thought it was really beautiful. I thought that it was really fun. I thought that there was so much great adventure and just a lot of wonderful things all brought into this idea of the sports, but also the leadership and the camaraderie, but the individual. And of course, as a 6'1" person, my dream would be to be with the Amazons one day and partake in some of those scenes. However, I'm not that athletic, but that's okay. That's totally sidetracking. So I love that first section. And honestly, we've chatted about it. That first act is honestly pretty decent. I commented as we were watching it, and I said, oh my goodness, I could watch Steve discover the 80s this entire time. There needs to be more. It's freaking hilarious. He does such a good job with that role. And then as we've chatted, like they get to Egypt and it happens. It's not super engaging. They miss a lot of opportunities, and they're trying to do too much, in my opinion. Honestly, they're trying to do a lot, and they're trying to wrap it up in one movie, which I don't also, I mean, I'm not the big wigs with the whole map of it all, but I don't understand what the need to wrap it all up in one movie. Can we have a couple things that carry forward? And yeah, I think there were some holes. I think they tried to do too much. And there needed to be more Steve discovering the 80s. Yep.
Andrea, what were your impressions of it?
I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, not how you described it, Ben, but like the reviews and stuff like that. They were saying, "Oh, it's the worst movie ever," and I was like, I didn't think it was that bad. It really wasn't that bad. I just thought everybody's standards for it were so high because the first one was so good. And it didn't meet those expectations. It wasn't spectacular. It wasn't like, Avengers Endgame or anything like that, but it wasn't as bad as people were saying, because my expectations were very low because everyone was saying it was so bad. So maybe that's why I enjoyed it, because I went in with lower expectations and it exceeded those expectations. So maybe that's why. But yes, there were moments that was very slow. My genuine thing was, why does it take place in the 80s? There was really no particular reason for it to take place in the 80s. I watched it with my parents, and my dad actually suggested, why not World War II? Because it would be interesting to have Steve Trevor, who was in World War One, be like, why are we still at war? What's going on? Although I mentioned that it may be a little bit too similar to Captain America, because that one is already World War II, even though it's completely different stories. But again, it's the Marvel versus DC thing. People will be like, we'll start comparing it to Captain America. But then I suggested, maybe why not Vietnam? That's a war that America did not win, and it would be interesting to see that sort of thing as well. But again, I love the 80s movies and stuff like that. So I'm not complaining that it took place in the 80s. I was just wondering, why the 80s? Like, why not present day? Why not any of that stuff? Um, Both of you already touched on things that I wanted to say anyway, but my other thing was, I was really confused about Steve Trevor. Let me explain why. So, first of all, I have no idea why he came back in another body. I don't think that was ever really explained. And if it was explained, it was glossed over because I completely missed it. I did not understand for a minute. I was like, why is he in this other dude's body? And secondly, I was under the assumption, like with all the information before the movie came out, that Steve Trevor, it was like his relative or something like that, which I thought maybe would have worked a lot better. Maybe like his nephew or something who happens to look just like him, but they do that with other movies all the time too. But it would make a lot of sense, that, in my opinion, because like, oh, Steve Trevor would obviously tell people about Wonder Woman. I mean, we saw the first movie and he was at war the whole time, but I mean, there's ways. But like, I don't know. I think it was kind of cheating Diana too, because Diana kind of needed Steve to do everything, even though she's literally Wonder Woman. I did honestly really like Cheetah's character development. I was very apprehensive about Kristen Wiig at first, probably in the same way I was apprehensive about Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. But after seeing her performance, I was very surprised. I thought Kristen Wiig had a lot of fun with the role, which is something that, as an actor, you really, if you're not having fun with the role, you're really bad at it. So I thought she did a great job, honestly. And I thought it was maybe about 30 minutes too long. I think that the climax was kind of boring, honestly. And the Cheetah versus Wonder Woman fight could have been better. And I really thought Wonder Woman was going to fight Pedro Pascal. His character name escapes me, sorry. But that she just said, "Oh, don't wish on that," and then it kind of went away. And it was like, okay, that wasn't that exciting. And the I forgot the word again. Payoff, I guess, wasn't as great as the journey. The goal wasn't as good as the journey. Like, we were watching the journey, and I was like, oh, cool, this is gonna have some really cool payoff. But she ended up losing Steve. Kristen Wiig lost her superpowers. Pedro Pascal got reunited with his son anyway. Like, the son didn't learn anything, he didn't learn anything, and it was just kind of like Ben said, like, it just kind of ended. So I thought the wishing stone was kind of a MacGuffin. They had hyped it up so much, and it was only in like 10 minutes of the movie. But I had fun watching it, and I actually also really liked the White House fight scene. I thought it was kind of cool. Introducing Cheetah's powers, and having Steve actually do stuff, and Diana actually do stuff. It's pretty great. I thought maybe that White House scene should have been like the climax. But yeah, I mean, I had fun watching it. I always love watching Gal Gadot, and of course, I love Chris Pine doing anything ever. So those are my thoughts. Sorry if I talked a lot, but I had a lot of stuff to say.
That's okay. That's why we're here. I do want to talk about the Steve Trevor like reappearance for a second, because yeah, that's just weird to me that they gloss over the fact that like there's something a little bit wrong about I mean, one, when she's pining over Chris Pine. But they don't really go into the sort of ethical dilemma of, hey, in order for Steve Trevor to stick around, this guy whose life you are inhabiting essentially doesn't exist anymore. And I don't know how they could possibly gloss over that little problem. Um, it's just weird. It's just very silly. Um, but I do agree the White House fight is really well done. And it probably should have ended at that point because, yeah, when they get to, I think, I think the one of the only reasons they went with the '80s was for the whole concept of broadcast television being a huge thing. But that's only a big thing at the end of the film. And maybe also possibly because this was, of course, again back in the day when we were, plundering the Middle East for its oil and continuing to. I mean, truth be told, we continue to do that today. So there really isn't, if that was a plot point that they were looking at, there really isn't a reason they could have said it now. But yeah, it just ends. And I feel like no one learns a lesson. Like there's no resolution to anything. Like, do we know what happens to Maxwell Lord and to Cheetah? No. Cheetah might have escaped. We don't know if she was captured and imprisoned. We don't know if Maxwell Lord was imprisoned. He may have taken his son and ran off to some deserted island. We have no clue. We just flash forward from July to December or November or whatever. It's Christmas time at the end of the movie, and everyone's just walking around like nothing happened. And I'm just sitting here thinking, if this is what's been going on before Bruce Wayne became Batman, no wonder Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne is super duper paranoid. Like, everyone's just, this crazy chaotic thing are happening and no one's addressing it.
Yeah, I want to jump in and just like agree with you on that. One of my biggest qualms with the ending, like now listening to the two of you talk about it, yes, I think there is much more potential that it could have and should have ended at the White House. Especially, sorry, my cat is trying to climb up with me. But because also I cannot stand the fact that they travel via helicopter to this place to be able to go disseminate all of this information via broadcasting. And then some government official is like, oh, dude who just tried to take over the world, please come into this chopper and let me let you out on the lawn of the White House so that you can find your son and go about your daily life. Like that makes absolutely no sense. And in something we were chatting about was it's just such a lack of consequences, which is something that you look at real life. We are already struggling with lack of consequences. And this movie, I'm not saying it has to touch on everything that happens in real life, but I think that is such a big part of where we have ginormous gaps in our system is the consequences, and then who gets consequences put against them and who doesn't. That for this movie to end with that, with, oh yes, you may join your family, it is fine. Yes, I struggle with that. So if they had just been like, oh hey, this fight happens at the White House, and also why isn't there a broadcasting place in the White House? Anyways, diverging. But that would have been so much more powerful, and they would have had the potential to cut that half an hour, which we all have mentioned is potentially too long, and or use that half hour to like close up some of the gaps they created for themselves. Yes. Okay. Whoosh, whoosh, your turn.
I just had one question about the White House. Was the president supposed to be Ronald Reagan? Because he was president then, but that is the worst Ronald Reagan impression I've ever seen in my life. Is it just supposed to be some random president, or was it supposed to be Ronald Reagan?
I don't know. Because these superhero movies occasionally have like in the MCU, they've made it very clear that they have a president in their own universe in Iron Man 3. I think it's X-Men First Class. They just use stock footage of JFK, which makes sense because that is, they're trying to recreate that period in history. In this film, yeah, it's like I think we thought that too. Catherine and I were like, is it supposed to be Reagan? Was Reagan president then? What are they trying to do here? Because yeah, it wasn't a good
That's why I
Reagan.
was confused. I was like, if you're gonna make it Ronald Reagan, make it Ronald Reagan. But if you're not, make it clear that it's not. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I mean, I could just IMDb it right now and find out, but you know what? I will do exactly that.
Want me to ask Alexa?
Is Alexa just sitting there in a convenient place because she's not in this house?
Well, she heard me say her name. She just lit up. She's listening.
While you're looking that on IMDb, I also just want to go to I was talking with a friend who never did anything with comics, and I'm not a humongous I have not read all the comics or anything like that. But they didn't catch the cheetah. They didn't make the cheetah connection because they never in the film call her cheetah, correct? They never call her that. No. And
No.
it's just based and they make assumptions with the clothes and then at the end when she physically turns into that, but they were like, why does she turn into this animal? Why is she turning into this cat thing? What's happening? And so I feel like they also had an opportunity to make that a little bit more clear for some of the people who don't follow comics as much. So that could have been helpful. Yeah.
I actually am not as familiar with the Wonder Woman comics as I am with some others. I do have an answer for this question here. The credited character in the film is simply POTUS.
Okay. So it could be Ronald Reagan or it could not be. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's just weird because like you were saying in X-Men, that time in history already happened. So JFK is the president. In Iron Man 3, it's present day, so you can get away with having whoever you want as president. But 1984 already happened. So unless it's like an alternate 1984, which I guess could happen in movies. Anyway, we're talking about stuff that has nothing to do with the movie now, and I'm gonna send it back.
Well, considering that they're potentially going the multiverse route with the Flash movie, maybe it is possible that 1984 takes place and the Wonder Woman. I don't know. DC has also been wildly unclear as to how their films are connecting in a post-Justice League world, whether they're supposed to stand on their own or whether or not they're supposed to all be a shared universe the way Marvel is. And I just chalk that all up to the fact that they may not have had a big game plan going forward the way Marvel has, or at least the way Marvel has been very transparent about what that game plan is. What was I? Oh, going back to Cheetah. And Catherine, I talked to you about this after we watched the movie. I do think it's cool, but again, this doesn't work if you don't know that the character's name is Cheetah. The lesson that Diana learns at the beginning of the film is, of course, not to cheat. And what does Barbara do to gain Diana's powers? She wishes it upon herself. She doesn't earn it. She cheats. She's a cheetah. So I think that's a good way to work that name into the actual character. But again, the cheetah name is completely left out. Also, they did kind of change up Maxwell Lord a lot. He's a little more powerful in the comic books, and I do remember this. He has telepathic abilities, and he at one point gains control of Superman and just uses him to wreak havoc. And he's so what happens in the comic books during during the Infinite Crisis event from 2005 and 6, Wonder Woman confronts him and captures him with the lasso of truth, and she's able to convince him to stop controlling Superman, but she says, what am I going to have to do to keep you from doing this again? And he says, with the lasso, you'll have to kill me. And this is actually being broadcast on live TV, and Wonder Woman knows that it's the only thing she can do, so she snaps his neck on live TV. And I remember turning to you, Catherine, and our mom. We were all watching it together and saying at the end, like, "Oh my God, if she does what I think she might do in order to stop him, that would be a total crazy move for them to pull in this movie, which is geared toward it's PG-13, but you just know that the kids are going to be watching this. And that would be a pretty ballsy move to pull on this kind of movie.
Well, and on the second one, like she hasn't grown. I'm gonna dive in real quick here. She hasn't grown enough in her character arc because I feel like she made some progress and growth in the first one, and then she kind of came back in a similar place in this one. I would like to see her move forward. I think she can totally get to that place that you're talking about with if she had to snap a dude's neck, right? But yes. Anyways, there's questions about her character arc and the grieving process that I have in here, and there's so many.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's nice that they also have her stick to her tenet of like non-lethality. That's, you know, her and Superman and Batman, you know, maybe not necessarily Batfleck, but you know, most iterations of Batman tend to go for that whole no killing thing. Let's just jump into, we've already kind of talked a little about this. How does it compare to that first film? Catherine, let's jump to you first. Like 2017, June 2017. Whew, what a time.
Honestly, my eyes just teared up a little bit, being like, oh, I saw it in the theater, and I can remember that story. Like, I'll have the story of this one. Like, this is not comparing the film. This is comparing the experience first, which I think maybe you're talking about later. We'll talk about later. Never mind. Boom. Just the film. That first one was just so awesome, honestly, truly to get in a time when it was very much like male identifying dominated superhero flick after flick after flick after flick. And so finally for that to come in and be like, woman is in the title. What? Like, was amazing. And I was so excited. And I was teaching college at the time in the Midwest, and just the amount of college age students who were so excited to go. I mean, both female identifying and male identifying, who were just like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to go and see this movie. So I think it revved up a lot of just excitement about a new type of superhero that was coming. I remember going, I want to say I went to the midnight. I want to say I did. Because one of the things about living in Michigan was I got to see movies before Ben did on the West Coast, and I definitely laughed about that a lot, which was wonderful. So I think I went to midnight, and then I went again the next day with another group of friends. I might have even gone 3 times, and I am not Ben in the sense that I go to a movie multiple times in the theater. I'm one who's like, okay, I've seen it in the theater. That's really awesome, and we can talk about it, but I don't have to constantly go back for that theatrical experience. But I was like, get in the car, we're going, let's watch it. And just to see it, it was so awesome. And then to get to see, I'm just making this connection now, but like as she goes into the mortal world and makes this, what is this? What is this? A dress, a thing, or what? Like, and then to have her get to lead Steve through that same experience, actually, now thinking about it, is a really cool transition of having her kind of be more in charge in the 80s. So just that first film was so much. And the second one, I think Andrea hit it right on the head. There was just so much hype. There was so much about it. And I think that, I think it could have potentially been a little bit of a different experience in the theater, which again, I know you're touching on later, but I just think that there were some story holes that, when did they finish filming this movie, by the way? Do we know?
That's actually a good question. As far as I know, it was ready to be released back in June. And the only reason that it was delayed was for COVID.
Right. So there's a lot of world shit. Can I swear on this?
You can. If it's the F word, I might bleep it out.
Yeah, that's fine. There's a lot of world-ish that happened between June of 2020 and now. We're talking 6 months, and so much happened, not just COVID, right? That honestly, because of COVID, we all had an opportunity to sit back, check ourselves, examine our lives, learn some things, relearn some things that I think definitely changed the lenses in which I know I as an individual saw this movie. So thinking that this was going to come out earlier, and now knowing the different lenses that I have seen it through, I think that's a really big part of discussion, is the lens that I watched the first one through in 2017 is so drastically different than this one in 2020 that I honestly haven't even gone back and rewatched the first one since all of these events have happened. So that would be something I'd be interested in doing. It was very much tangent. but I followed a lot of brain paths and I just did it. So I open to you.
Andrea, how would you compare it to the first film? Just
I mean, pretty much what Catherine said. I was looking at it through a different lens because 2017 we get Wonder Woman after all this hype. Finally, after seeing the disaster that was Batman v Superman, but she was actually the best part of that movie, and I was so looking forward to her getting her own movie, and she got one, and I was like, yes, this is awesome. And then this is going to be a bit of a tangent, but I promise it has a point. After that, Captain Marvel came out, and when I first saw Captain Marvel, I thought it wasn't as good as Wonder Woman because Wonder Woman did it first, and Captain Marvel I felt was just kind of the MCU version of Wonder Woman. Um, but after rewatching both of those movies, I appreciate them a lot more for what they were. They weren't, in my opinion, they weren't trying to send a message. They weren't trying to be like, look, women, we can do it too. We're feminists, hooray. That's not what they were trying to do, in my opinion. They were just trying to make a movie where a woman is the main character. And that's the problem with some of these other movies. Um, they're trying to be edgy and stuff like that. And I feel like that's what Wonder Woman 84 was doing, is trying to be in the moment and trying to say, look what we did. We made a lesson out of drilling oil in Egypt or whatever it was. So I think maybe the nonchalant of the message being like, she's a superhero and she just happens to be a woman, versus saying like, we are purposely going to make this superhero a woman to make sure women have like the same, whatever. And I think it works a lot better if it's not forced. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think about it. It's just hard to put into words. But like, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that with Captain Marvel either. I watched both movies and it's just like, these are movies that I'm having a lot of fun watching. I didn't even think about that. They didn't treat uh, Carol Danvers like a woman. They treated her like a person. And although with Wonder Woman, the first movie, they did treat her like a woman, but that was because of the times. It was just after the Victorian era. It was during World War I, 1910s, where women still weren't quite people. But the main characters didn't treat her like a dainty woman. They treated her like a human, which is what I would want to see for equality. I don't want to be treated like a woman. I want to be treated like a person. But I feel like with this movie, they kind of went for the message versus the meaning, or I mean, that was the same thing, but I think you guys get what I'm saying. It was a little, I felt like the message, if there was one, was forced right down our throats. Like what Catherine said earlier about it, about there was no consequence or anything, because Pedro Pascal apologized and Cheetah was like, wow, I shouldn't have beat her up. But it was just kind of like, really? Um, and I have one complaint about the first Wonder Woman, and it's that I wish that the war was real, because when she defeated Ares, the war ended. I wish that she would have learned that war is man-made and not everything can be fixed by doing like beating up a god or whatever. I wish she would learn that, something like what Steve Trevor says when she killed the wrong guy. I wish that would have been the message in the first one. But again, that's another tangent about the first movie, and we aren't talking about that. So yeah, so some of the second movie, I was kind of like cringe a little bit at the forced messages they were trying to send, whereas I didn't feel that way about the first one.
I actually I love that you brought up that point about Ares at the end of the first film, because that was an instance of the studio saying we need to have Wonder Woman fighting, this big guy at the end of the film. And Patty Jenkins has yet to really come forth and say what the original ending was supposed to be, except that there was an original ending. I would imagine it simply has a lot more to do with that sort of sense of a building up of that realization of, oh my gosh, war is a man-made construct and not necessarily a thing that you can just stop by killing one person. Because I was ready in the first one for the movie to end with that horrific realization. I killed him, and it did nothing. It doesn't stop the root causes of what war is by killing one man. But yeah, for me, the first film was just such an incredible experience, and you know, my expectations were high because one, the critics loved it. it made total bank in its opening weekend. And I missed it opening weekend. I had to go a few days later. Haha, yes, I know you saw it first, Catherine. And yeah, it was coming off of that minor bit of hype you got from Batman versus Superman of, oh, cool, there's actually a cool character in this film who's not, Batman or Superman, who were not that cool. Um, but I mean, it was just so cool also that like DC finally had figured out something that audiences wanted that wasn't just Batman and Superman anymore, because for years they had been, you kept hearing from DC and Warner Brothers up top, like, no one wants to see Wonder Woman. There's no interest in Wonder Woman. And then there was this great meme that popped around in 2014 that basically, said that DC says no one wants to see a movie with a superhero movie with a female lead, and underneath it was a picture of Groot and Rocket Raccoon, and it says Marvel. Here's a movie with a talking tree and a raccoon. And it's like, yeah, like we were ready for it for a long time. And it is kind of a shame that it had to spin out of that one disaster of a film and led straight into another even bigger disaster of a film. For any of you out there who were able to sit through Justice League, oof. I wish that 1984 had the moment for me that like just shook me to my core, the way that No Man's Land did in the first film.
Say that No Man's Land scene gave me chills.
Because yeah, we all in the audience, we all knew this, like, oh, this is the moment. This is the moment that this film has been building up to, and it was so cool. Just absolutely like blew everyone in the audience out of the water. And holy crap, 2017, the year where we were all betting on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 to be the biggest box office hit of the summer, and it got beat by Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was the #1 film that summer, and it wasn't because it had the best opening weekend. It had a good opening weekend, just north of 100 million. Not quite Marvel numbers, but it kept going because everyone said this is the movie to see this summer. We all saw Guardians Volume 2. We all agreed it was fun, but not as good as the first, and let it go. We all, and I think Spider-Man just sort of ended up getting caught in the wake of that same kind of hype. Like Spider-Man got hyped, had a great first 2 or 3 weekends. Wonder Woman was that movie where, yeah, it just slowly built it all up over the course of the whole summer because it's the one we were all talking about. And again, I don't want to jump into like that sense of theatricalness that we're missing from the second one now from seeing at home. So, here's the fun question. How does this film compare to the DC extended universe as a whole? Catherine, I don't think you've seen as many of these as Andrea and I have.
No, I honestly think that I should. I will observe this section.
I've seen all of them. Andrea, how many of them have you seen?
It depends on which ones count.
I
have not seen Justice League. I haven't seen some of the Batman movies.
The only one that counts here is Batman versus Superman. None of the other Batman movies count.
I saw that one, and I saw Suicide Squad, but I don't know if that counts.
It does, sadly.
Okay. Yeah, I've not seen Justice League, so I can't give an informed opinion about that one. From what I have seen reviews of Justice League, Wonder Woman was also pretty good in that, so good for her. How this movie fits, I have no idea because I don't know what the timeline is versus Marvel timeline. I'm guessing, well, my great assumption is Wonder Woman is the first one because it's World War I, kind of like Captain America. And then probably everything else is in order after that. I don't know where Aquaman fits in, but I've seen that one. I like that one because of the lead. um, yeah, I mean, I don't know the timeline, so I'm not a really good person to talk about this because I didn't pay attention to a lot of the movies. I kind of shut out Batman v Superman out of my mind, except for Wonder Woman and Jesse Eisenberg. I remember him. Um, Aquaman had nothing to do with Wonder Woman, so um, I don't know, and I don't know anything about DC either. But I know the Flash is getting his own movie, which I'm really excited for. I liked, honestly, the best part of Suicide Squad was the Flash scene, for like that 10-second scene, um, which is ironically directed by Zack Snyder, which is really funny. Um, uh, I'm hoping we get more from Wonder Woman because I don't like this movie as a conclusion to her story. Um, I know we're going to be talking more about it later, but it, I just wish for more, I guess. I don't watch any of the TV shows either, so I'm sorry, I don't know that much about it. So that's my thoughts.
Well, DC's film and television, again, it's so much more confusing than what Marvel has offered up because, again, Marvel has, been very deliberate in saying this is how our movies roll and this
I
is
have
how.
seen Lego Batman movie though. That's got a lot of
I,
DC characters in it.
even I haven't seen that. um, but yeah, Marvel is very deliberate in saying this is our series, this is how it ties into TV, and then kind of walking that back when the TV stuff doesn't work. But at least they tried. It's so confusing with DC because they do have their own TV stuff. They have the movies. They've tried to tie some of the TV shows into the older movies and I haven't watched the TV series either. I know stupid nerd shit. I know like they brought in, I think they brought in someone from either one of the old movies or the old TV shows to be in like the Arrowverse and like, oh, cool. It all crosses over. And Michael Keaton's supposed to be in The Flash as Batman, and Ben Affleck's going to be in it too. And we're going to have two Batmen, kind of like how we're going to have many Spider-Men coming up. But it's like, oh man, how do these DC properties all tie together? Well, here's the DC extended universe that I can say. Man of Steel was the first one. Then Batman versus Superman. Then Suicide Squad. So at this point, we're 0 for 3 because those films were not good. Then Wonder Woman came out, and it was finally like, oh, great. DC is on the right track. And then a few months later, we got Justice League, and it was clear that they weren't on a right track. I don't know if I could recommend you even watch Justice League out of idle curiosity. It took actually the few good parts about Batman in Batman v Superman and just took that all away. And Wonder Woman couldn't save it. And actually part of the problem with Justice League was they decided, let's make every other hero, all the male heroes, attracted to Diana at some point in the film, except for Superman, of course, because Superman only has eyes for Lois. But yeah, they had an awkward sexual tension moment with every other male character because, of course. What was after Justice League? Aquaman. It took him a year to get Aquaman after Justice League, and Aquaman was fun. It's kind of dumb, but it's fun. And I'm also a sucker for anything that takes place underwater extensively. And it has a Kraken. So I was totally cool with that. Then Shazam was the next one.
That's right.
And
I do like Shazam.
Shazam was awesome. Shazam is probably after Wonder Woman, maybe my second or third favorite of these films. And it kind of sucks that they kind of erased, oh my gosh, why can't I? Henry Cavill's Superman at the end. When you just have Superman show up and he's just a body.
I read somewhere that he wanted to do it, but he was filming Mission Impossible or something like that at the same time, or Witcher or whatever, so he couldn't do it. He really wanted to.
That could have been it. There's also been a lot of questions about whether or not he is coming back. Because Warner Brothers keeps wanting to sort of reset these films. Who knows?
Start over because they're all terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think after Shazam, we didn't get another one until oh no. Start of the year. This might be my second favorite one actually, was Birds of Prey, the follow-up to Suicide Squad, which you don't have to see Suicide Squad to appreciate, and I love that. And that honestly was the best, the better of between that and Wonder Woman 84, my favorite female-led superhero movie of the year. It definitely it takes advantage of its R rating. Feels very much like a Harley Quinn meets Deadpool type film, with a fabulous ensemble. So, yeah, if you're looking for a like really top of the line DC movie to watch after Wonder Woman 1, Birds of Prey is, in my opinion, the one. No one saw it. Watch it. And then Wonder Woman 1984. And now we're kind of waiting for whatever it is that's coming next, whether it's The Flash or the Robert Pattinson Batman film, which it could be. Well, I think it's going to be the Batman because they're like filming it already. So I don't know if they've got anything set for 2021.
Is there a Shazam 2 anywhere in this mix?
Black Adam is the prequel to Shazam 2.
Okay.
I know, I don't know
Yeah,
if that makes sense, but Black Adam's supposed to be the villain in Shazam 2, so they're setting up Black Adam with his own movie first, and then they're putting him in Shazam 2 as the villain.
Because
I don't know if they're going to use the same kid from the first one because he's going to be like 25 by the time the movie comes out.
Yeah.
Gosh, that'd be complicated. I mean, I have a small little crush on Zachary Levi. So, I mean, let's be real.
I met him, and we'll talk about that later.
Shut up! No. Ever since Chuck, okay, so tangent and totally just about my life. I have categories of husbands, and Zachary Levi is my TV show husband because Chuck was an amazing show. Anyways, yes, I can't believe you met my TV show husband. I haven't even met my TV show husband, so I'm a little jealous of you right now.
We'll talk about it later, Catherine. We'll talk about it later.
So, anyway, if I was to say, how would I compare Wonder Woman 84 to the rest of the DC extended universe, I would put it, below my top three, just below my top three, which are Wonder Woman, Birds of Prey, and Shazam, and above, well, maybe Aquaman a little bit higher there too. But like, it's not top tier, but it's definitely better than the Zack Snyder trio of terror and Suicide Squad. Oh, what? Duh. We are getting a DC movie this year. We're getting James Gunn's Suicide Squad. And if that cast is anything to go by, it's going to be crazy. And I think it's also getting the R rating, I think. So that's one I'm actually looking forward to as well. So yeah. But again, it's like, is it a reboot? Is it a sequel? We don't really know because they keep having so many misses with these films.
They have some of the same actors from the first one though. They have Jai Courtney and of course Margot Robbie again. And I think they have Joel Kinnaman too is also in it. And
yes, I was going to say I thought Viola Davis was coming back. But yeah, it is like, is it a reboot? Are they just bringing back the characters they thought were good from the first film?
I think it's essentially a reboot of, because the first one was a disaster. Because I don't know if they bring back the same actors because Idris Elba is playing Will Smith, so I don't know if they would do that for a sequel. But I mean, who knows? We won't know until it comes out.
He's not playing the same character.
Oh, good. Okay, then never mind.
Yeah, different character. But yeah, Suicide Squad. So one of the things that we kind of has been part of the discussion with Wonder Woman is, are we starting to hold tentpole films to too high of a standard? When does it become okay for a series to stumble? Part of the problem is, I think that in the past few years, we've been spoiled with some genuinely amazing superhero films, particularly since Captain America: The Winter Soldier, we've been hit with mostly good sequels as well. Before Winter Soldier, it was generally sort of like the number two film tended to be a dip in quality. Iron Man 2 is definitely a step down from 1. Thor: The Dark World is definitely the the major step down. And then Age of Ultron, which I don't think is as far of a dip as those two films, but it's so hard to but when you put it in between Avengers and then it's next two sequels, it's like it's hard to call it equal. Um, so we've been spoiled with generally great sequels. So I think we've talked about this. We all kind of assumed like, oh, Wonder Woman is going to be another one of those great sequels, especially because the first one was so very highly regarded. But honestly, like we kind of do have to let these series stumble every now and then. I can't be too judgmental about Wonder Woman because I'm a big fan of Godzilla and James Bond. And I realized that I didn't live through all of those films releasing. But, looking back, I can definitely say, hey, there are Bond movies that I still watch, even though I think they're not that great. Same with Godzilla films. I lived through most of the 90s ones, didn't get to see them in a theater because they're all only released in Japan. But like, I debate with people about which of the 90s films are good and bad. The only ones we don't ever debate are the original ones from the 50s and 70s because we didn't live through that and we all generally agree about those ones. But we're living through this right now. And these franchises, particularly on DC's end, are still in their infancy. They haven't had that time to grow and develop and allow themselves to stumble the way that Bond has. So really, and especially for Wonder Woman, this isn't the time to say, hey, this movie didn't live up to our expectations. This should be the end of it all. I think that this film is still going to continue to have its fan base, the way that there are fans out there of Iron Man 2. Some people love the Tony Stark character enough that they look at that and say, this is great. I think Wonder Woman is probably going to be like the Iron Man 2 of this trilogy. What do you think, Andrea?
Well, I don't think any sequel is as bad as Thor: The Dark World, so I do agree on that. Catherine's laughing. Yeah, I mean, I said this earlier that I didn't think it was that bad. I think it's the first DCEU movie to get a sequel, isn't it? Because I don't think Batman v Superman counts.
Yeah, I would actually a good point. I don't count it as a sequel, as a full-on sequel to Man of Steel in the character sense, because it's not, it's not a Superman movie. It's a team-up movie.
So it is, I guess, the first one to get a sequel then. So it's just kind of like a I mean, honestly, like you were saying, like Iron Man 2, because Iron Man 2 was also the first sequel of the MCU. Of course, they didn't have that many movies made by then, but I think it's just kind of a nice experiment, I guess, to see how well this one fares versus like, they're like, okay, so we did this one, maybe with Aquaman 2, we'll do this one or whatever. Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't think it was quite that bad. And I just think that expectations for it, again, this is pretty much all you were saying already, but we're so high because of the first movie. And since my expectations, again, weren't that high because everyone said it was bad, I ended up really enjoying it. That is a good movie, but just as like a fun movie, if I'm bored one day, I'll have it on versus stuff like that. But and again, I don't really think it's nearly as bad as any of the other DC movies, the Zack Snyder ones. But I mean, I think Patty Jenkins directed this one too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's a budding young director. I mean, she's got quite a few movies under her belt, so it's not like it's her first movie, but she's not nearly as well known as like Zack Snyder or James Gunn or whoever. I mean, those just happen to be male directors. I don't think her being a woman has stuff to do with it. But like Catherine Bigelow, she's a female too. She's got a big name for herself versus, Patty Jenkins is still getting her foot in the door. And I think that in order to be a successful director and to have successful movies, you need to have quite a couple of failures here and there because, I mean, nobody's perfect, and that includes really great movie directors. So I think I don't really want to call it learned a lesson because nothing, I mean, that doesn't really make sense. But like the first movie was so good, and I think she tried to to take it in a different direction, and that direction didn't work. So now she knows which way to go for the next one. So I think overall it was a good try, and I think that not all sequels are bad. But again, this is the first standalone sequel in the DCEU, so it's kind of on its own pedestal at this point, and all the other ones have this far to go for their own sequels. So I think it's a good stepping stone for that.
Catherine, before I go to you, I've forgotten to make this point earlier. And another thing that I think the trailer had kind of overhyped with this film, and this one I do think is overhyped, is the way that the color palette was employed with the trailer. Definitely gave the film a Thor Ragnarok vibe. And Ragnarok definitely takes a lot of its inspiration from 80s movies without being one. I don't think Wonder Woman quite embraced the wackiness that we were expecting of it based on what the trailer kind of was coding towards us. So, but that's
more 80s. Like if you're going to make it 80s, make it like Back to the Future 80s, where there's 80s everywhere. But it was very subtle 80s, which led to my previous point of why the 80s. If you were not going to do it, go all out for 80s. We all know the 80s was not a very subtle decade. So go out, make it loud, this is the 80s. And that's what the trailer was implying. I felt like there was going to be a lot more like DeLoreans. And I mean, I wasn't born in the 80s, so I don't know. But more DeLoreans, like neon colors. But it ended up being a lot more subtle than I thought it would be. And yeah, I noticed that the trailers for these movies are very, very good. And the movies themselves are like, oh, the trailer was better.
Catherine, now that we've gone on a tangent, let's go back to that question about tentpole films and standards.
Yeah. Okay. Tangents? Are you kidding? Tangents are amazing. You discover so much within tangents. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think this movie was awful. I think that, again, I agree with everybody around here when we say that the expectations of it were just so high. And I really think that this is just a general thing that we need to do better as society, is offer some grace, right? I go off of what Andrea was saying, right? That it failed in some aspects, which is totally great. And the educator within me hates when it's like, okay, hold on, let me try. The educator in me is always like, yes, there can be a lesson that is learned in this moment, which I think is true. And it's also that you get to be frustrated with it for a while, but then you get to pick out where you need to grow from. So like, I remember sitting with this movie for those 24 hours and just being like, I was so underwhelmed by this film. And I have questions about this, and the consequences were such a big thing for me, and the characters. And then there have been a couple articles, just as we talked about Steve's body originally, like consent in the whole thing, of just like, hey, he's in a different person's body. Like, there's so many things that I'm like, okay, you could have learned from failure. No, but hopefully realizing that you dipped your toes into a lot of pools that were unanswered. Yes, I really hope that there's just that takeaway from this of, what did I actually really, really want to tell in my story? Because I feel like the whole cheetah storyline connects into the beginning moment with young Diana. But as you and I talked about that night, Ben, Diana already learned that lesson about cheating and everything, like in the previous movies. So was it really for her? Was it to set up this other character? Was it to, yes, more tangents, because they're the best things ever. But my personal standards were high. I also am a person who can look at it and go, okay, I've lived with that for now. Did it meet them? No. Is it enjoyable? Will I put it on while I'm working on syllabi? Yes. Will I put it on in the background? Yes. Will I do that with Thor: The Dark World? Hell no, I will not. Like, that movie should not grace my television screen, right? Like, so in terms of sequels and being able to hold it to a standard, is it a film that I'm going to revisit multiple times? Yes. Yes, it is, because there are many enjoyable aspects. Will I happen to start cleaning and vacuuming by the time they get to Egypt? Probably, but that's okay. We have that with some films. And I just think that we need to offer some grace to artists who want to explore something, who want to figure out if this is their area, who want to figure out if these are the stories they actually want to tell. I think we also don't know a lot of what happens behind the doors of who decided that all of these stories needed to be told. But I also want to say in this that when we look at standards, I think that we have so many critics everywhere in the world with access to giving their voice out really, really quickly that it is taking away individuals' ability to make an opinion for themselves based off of something they've seen, which is hard, which is very, very hard. And I don't know how to handle, like how to fix that or whatever, other than try and go see the film before you read too much about it, right? So I feel like standards could be changed if people just allowed themselves to go experience something for their own ideals. Whoosh, bam, yes.
We keep bringing up Egypt as the point in the film where it kind of starts to fall apart, and I don't want to leave this out because I think it's actually a very important thing to discuss. Is that I do think this film has opportunities to learn from the way that it portrays its Egyptian characters and pretty much characters, Middle Eastern characters in general, and the way that it handled that whole situation in the Middle East, kind of relegating all conflict there to basically the result of the MacGuffin in the film, as opposed to exploring the actual real tensions between the United States, the Soviet Union, and what was going on there at the time. I wrote in my review that I really do believe X-Men First Class did it better with their retelling of the Cuban Missile Crisis, because they didn't just explain it as the mutants did it. It was a careful manipulation of the United States and the Soviet Union by the villains in that film that built up to a real event. And it was it shouldn't be eye-opening to read tweets like this, but to read a tweet that says, as a person of Egyptian and Arab descent, I was offended by this. That shouldn't be eye-opening anymore. And that's something that Hollywood needs to work on. That's not just a Wonder Woman 1984 problem. That is a major Hollywood problem.
Well, and I think that honestly, what you just said connects a lot to what I was talking about earlier with the lens that we're looking at things with now. Like, we all do need to be more critical of what we're watching and hold each other accountable, or at least, like, what I'm happy about what you said, that the tweet that came out, is that there are voices that are saying, hey, there was a problem, and that it is generating conversation. I think those are all really big, important things that truly need to happen. You know, and that's also where I think there needs to be grace given, because I don't believe it was ever Patty's intent for that to be for what it was. But I think that even when it comes to film, when it comes to conversing about film, when it comes to conversing about the arts, we really need to look at that model of those conversations of talking about, okay, well, it wasn't my intent, but I need to acknowledge that impact. And then that, I think, is where the learning and coming forward into the next story comes in. And just making sure that I acknowledge the impact that I had. I know it wasn't my intent, but it happened. So now how do I become a better storyteller from it? How does the Wonder Woman series move forward from that and not do something like that again? How does Hollywood handle that, and how do they continue to move forward? Yeah. Yes. Big questions.
And
Big
again,
problems.
not just a Wonder Woman, not just a problem with this movie. It's a problem that's been going on for
Ever.
God, forever. Yeah. For as long as there's been film. So the final question I have for like the topic of this particular film is, this is sort of the start of Warner Brothers and HBO's big grand 2021 experiment of delivering films to their streaming service at the same time as movie theaters, where it is safe to actually see them in cinemas. Again, for those of us in Washington, we don't have any cinemas open outside of drive-ins. And as I just mentioned, it is super rainy here right now. Doesn't matter what you're going to go see. You're going to have a miserable experience. But how was the experience of seeing like this big kind of film debut on HBO, as opposed to the cinema where you probably had hoped and expected to see it? Catherine and I have already talked about this. So Andrew, I want to hear what you have to say first.
I definitely missed the cinemas. it's definitely a harder experience watching it on TV. I say this a lot to my parents because they can relate, and in college, so it will be a tangent, but it's a relatable tangent. In college, when I was studying for finals, I did not study in my dorm. I had to go to the library to study because there were far less distractions. I wasn't distracted by the food in my room or anything like that. It was just me, my computer, and my headphones, and that was it. That's all I needed to study. Whereas if I stayed in my dorm, my roommate was there, I had food in there, the internet was better, so I was more tempted to go on Netflix. And it's the same story with this home media. If I'm at the cinema, there's less distractions. I don't have my phone. My phone is off. I turn my phone off when I go to the movies. I have less to do when I'm there. All I can do is just sit and look at the screen when I'm at the cinema. Versus at home, I have so many distractions. I got my dog. I got both my parents asking me questions about Wonder Woman. We have terrible food. Like the phone's ringing. My phone isn't silenced because I need it for things. But so there's the whole sort of distraction thing going on that is really hard to do with home media. Again, the cinema, it's so much easier. It's just you and the screen and your popcorn and your candy or whatever. But at home, you have all these other distractions to distract you from actually watching the movie. And a lot of it, of course, can be handled, put your phone away or whatever. But it's not just that, it's other things too. If you're at home, you're like, I'm going to go get a snack because the kitchen is right next to my TV. You get up and you make a snack and you miss 5 minutes of the movie. Whereas at the cinema, you're sitting there again, just watching the screen. And I think that's kind of a big problem with the home streaming thing. And I know it can't be helped right now, but when movies come back to cinemas, I think it's going to be a lot better experience. And I don't think the screen size is a problem because, as we know, TVs today are huge. So seeing it on a big screen to me doesn't make a difference. I mean, I don't really like seeing movies in IMAX personally because I have to be like way back here and like look at the whole thing. So the screen size to me doesn't make a difference. I know it matters to some people, but to me personally, I don't have a problem with it. It's just the distractions thing. And also, we've talked about this multiple times on the Sunday Matinee before, and it's the accessibility issue. Not everybody has HBO to watch these things. I know Ben and I have talked about it a couple of times, but I have to use one of my friend's HBO accounts because I already have all these other streaming services. And, Soul debuting on Disney Plus instead of in the cinemas. Not everybody has Disney Plus, so not everybody has access to these films. So it's just, whereas everybody can go to the cinema. Like you don't have to have internet or phone or computer or anything to go to a movie. You can just drive to the cinema or even take a bus to the cinema or walk how close it is and just pay for it, look at the screen and walk back and discuss it. Whereas with having streaming and all that stuff, you have to have this account, you have to have this account, you need to have internet at this time, and you have to make sure you've paid off your monthly fees, and you have to make sure you're logged in, and it's a whole thing. And I do like, I mean, being home is nice, but like the whole seeing movie thing is all about the experience. To me, you can see a really terrible movie on the big screen, but at least you went out and was there to see the movie, versus if you're watching a really terrible movie at home, granted you can shut it off at any time, but it's just kind of not the same thing. So I think that the streaming is hard in some cases. For me again, I got lucky, but in some cases it's hard because a lot of people don't have HBO. A lot of people don't have Hulu. A lot of people don't have Netflix. It's just kind of frustrating that the only way to see these movies is to pay for a streaming service that some people, I mean, you may only use it once to just watch the movie and you still have to pay $6.99 a month, and it's just frustrating. So that's my thought. Sorry, again, I went on a tangent about streaming services rather than just watching a movie on HBO, but that's where I stand on the whole issue.
That's actually a very valid point, given that this movie is currently, for us, only available to watch on HBO. I made a bet. I think it was with I don't remember, Andrew, if it was with you and Gary or if it was with Dea, that Wonder Woman would end up outstreaming Soul. I think it was with Dea. I thought Wonder Woman would outstream Soul because it was a much more anticipated movie overall. Well, as it turns out, and I don't have the numbers here, but I can say that subscriptions to HBO Max and Disney Plus definitely surged on Christmas Day and in the weeks since. But Disney Plus subscriptions have surged even more than HBO. And part of that is definitely because HBO Max is not available in a lot of countries outside the US, which I did not even consider. Whereas Disney Plus is available in a lot more places and is continuing to expand. As they've made that point on Disney Investor Day, like they're about to go full on Disney Plus in South America. So, watch out. You're about to watch all your Pixar and Marvel stuff down there now too. But yeah, I agree. There's something about the cinematic experience that was missing. I got distracted watching the film. Yes, you can get up to get a snack. The kitchen's right there. But like the first time I watch a movie, what's great about the cinema is like what's great and bad is that you can't pause it. If I really have to go to the bathroom, yes, I'll do it. It'll be frustrating as heck, and I'll have to ask someone what I missed. But it's also frustrating to me to pause a movie that I'm just seeing for the first time to have to go to the bathroom. I love that experience of just watching something straight through. And yeah, that's just me being picky. But it's my thing. And I could also tell I'm watching this film where they actually filmed it in IMAX. Because I'd look at my monitor and be like, oh, there's no black bars. That's an IMAX scene. And it was definitely the opening prologue. And then for whatever reason, the final scene at Christmas time was filmed in IMAX. And I don't know why that would be a big IMAX moment. But that's just me. I can tell these things because I'm a huge nerd. But yeah, I genuinely miss it. And there's a difference too between a situation like this where you had the opportunity or could have had the opportunity if they delayed it to see it for the first time in cinemas versus that film that maybe I happened to miss at the cinema because, life happens and have no other choice but to watch it at home for the first time. That happens every now and then. I don't get to see every movie I want to in the theaters, but like this is a scenario where this is a movie I would have prioritized seeing in the theaters if I had a chance. So it's very frustrating. And it is also, yeah, very frustrating that like not everyone can get HBO Max, or if you do get HBO Max just for this film, it's like, were you lucky and were you able to get a free, 1 or 2 week trial of it that you can ditch because you're not interested in sticking around for Godzilla versus Kong or Suicide Squad or whatever else is coming down the road? Maybe you're not interested in that and you want to ditch it right away. And it's like, cool, you just used up your free trial. And you were actually very generous, Andrea, with the $6.99. It's like HBO is like $15 a month.
I remember that was the Netflix price for a while, and then it just went. But that's just
yeah. Yeah, I remember when Netflix was that cheap, also. Gosh, I'm surprised I haven't brought this up yet on the show in the last couple of weeks, but like Disney Plus hiked up their price. Either they already did or they're planning to, but it's only $1. So you probably aren't even going to notice it. But it's like Disney Plus is still easily the cheapest one on the market, especially if you don't go all in with like the Hulu bundle. So yeah, it's like it sucks to have to pick and choose what services you want to keep and what ones you want to ditch. I'll probably end up ditching HBO Max after 2021 if we are going to be getting back into cinemas by then. Because I really, again, given the opportunity, I would rather see all of those films in a cinema. Catherine, what say you?
Yeah, I agree with everything that is said. Something that popped into my noggin as Andrea was talking was just that we go to the movies to be entertained and to learn and to engage in a different way of thinking. But part of the thing that I love about going to the movies, going to the cinema, is that there's a routine to it, and I don't have to be self-disciplined. I just get to go and I enjoy. And the one of the really hard things about COVID, especially for people who have smaller houses or people who have roommates or any of these situations, is that my house has to become all of these things. And for teaching, I talk to my students about, okay, well, try and set up in your house, whether it's you get out your yoga mat before we do theater every day. And like when you step onto the yoga mat is when you know that you're in the classroom and you leave all the other stuff behind and you whatever. But that is so much easier said than done, because I am with Andrea and where I get distracted and I start to think about, oh, well, what did I leave something on the counter the cat's going to get? Oh, I should go use the bathroom. No, I don't want to use the bathroom. I might distract somebody else. Well, I could pause it. I don't really want to pause it. Do I want a Christmas cookie? Like all of these things come into your brain where it's, we lose that opportunity to cross that threshold into the actual cinema and go, I am here to have this experience. And with us having to, and I mean, I say having to, and I know there's COVID and I'm not upset about it, but it's just one of those things that you realize that you miss on, is that my house now has to become this movie theater too. And I lose out on that ability to even just take in a movie with a stranger also is something that I miss, of just that communal laughter or that communal shock or frustration where something has happened, where a human who I have no idea who they are, I can't even see their face because they're 3 rows in front of me, but I could audibly hear them go, what the, and you just, there's something about that too, which it was great to get to watch with my mother and my brother, but I miss getting to go to that place to congregate with strangers and partake in art with people who I wouldn't partake in art with. Yeah.
I want to say too, that is huge. I do wish, Catherine, that you and I don't know what theater audiences are like over there in Ellensburg for you, but this is a great tangent. I think I've said it before, but I think one of the funniest things to me was when you and I went and saw Endgame on opening day. Not necessarily, I don't think we saw it opening night. I think it was like the first morning, and it was of course it was still a packed house, but like it was just, and we were in the back row. But it was just you, me, and like the guy sitting to my left were the only ones who were reacting to the movie, particularly when Steve grabs Mjolnir. We were the only 3 who were like, "Wah!" And the rest of the audience was just like, it's like, what's going on here? Did y'all not drink your coffee? Like, are y'all asleep? Because this is really cool. But the one moment that always got me was and I've said this before, and it's still kind of funny. Yes, I saw Infinity War 11 times at the cinema. And every time, all the way until like I saw it 2 days before it came out on Blu-ray in the cinema. And every time, someone in the audience gasped at Red Skull. Every time. And that was just awesome. But honestly, yeah, most of the time I get the Endgame experience in Auburn. Auburn audiences are really boring.
Ellensburg's not that much different. Sometimes it's just literally myself and one other person at the theater, and I'm like, or the cinema. I'm like, where is everybody? But sometimes that's also nice that you just go and you're like, I'm gonna
I did one of those like Cinemark experience, whatever they are, where they have like a show, like a Broadway show, but it's on the screen.
Yes.
And my mom and I went to Newsies, which is one of my favorite shows. I could talk about it for hours. But anyway, and we went to Newsies and there were like 4 other people in there, 2 of which were an elderly couple, and the elderly male sat next to me. I mean, he was a couple chairs over, but he sat next to me and he was asleep by like the second song and he started snoring.
Oh no.
I was like, really?
Right. But now you have that story. Like you got to go somewhere and have that story.
And now I have that story to tell people, right? Yeah.
Not great, but like if it was your dad who had fallen asleep next to you who was snoring, you'd be like, Dad, wake, at your house, because it's a totally different, totally different. Oh, it's so crazy.
Okay. This is going to be the biggest tangent so far because it really has nothing to do with Wonder Woman. But since we're kind of on the subject of audiences, like I also have gone to some of these Fathom events. I don't go to see the stage performances. I go to see like the classic films that they put up, usually once a month. And whenever I go to see it at my local theater here in Auburn, like it's me and like two other people. And it's like, why is no one else out here to come see Psycho? This movie's amazing. But like sometimes like Dea and I will go see one together in Tacoma at like Ruston Way is like one of the best ones to go to. And Dea would be like, well, we should get our tickets in advance. And I'd just be like, well, no one goes to see these. But then we get the tickets in advance anyways. And we go in and it's packed. And it's like, Tacoma audiences really dig this. What am I doing in Auburn? Freaking non-artistic weirdos down here. Sorry, Auburn, you're kind of lame. So yeah, it like your audience reaction is just going to depend too on where you're at. I imagine Seattle and Tacoma crowds are just going to be better in general than down here in the valley. Oh, one other thing I miss for sure and have missed for almost a year now is previews. And also just
I was gonna say that.
And then the dorky little roller coaster ride with the popping corn and the CG soda everywhere. And it's like, oh, this is so. And I'll get back there, at some point and be like, God, these things are dumb. But I missed it.
And those little I don't know if it's just Regal that does this or whatever, but it's like, oh, I'm a film student and I'm a film student, and here's our movie, enjoy. And it's like about a Coke product or whatever.
Yes. What are those film students even doing now? Like, are they making Coke product commercials?
They're directing Suicide Squad.
Oh, I also love that for a while it'd be like it'd also be introduced by like Olivia Wilde. And be like, I'm Olivia Wilde. I make independent movies. Watch this independent movie by a couple of students. And it's like, cool. Thanks, Olivia Wilde.
She's talking to me, guys.
Yeah. Maria Menounos is talking to me, everybody. Oh, man. Oh, God, I need to get back into a cinema. Okay. Tangent over. So I kind of jumped over the news section at the beginning a little bit because like the biggest news topic of the last week and a half is actually Wonder Woman related. And that is that Wonder Woman 3 was greenlit officially, within, 3 or 4 days after Wonder Woman 1984 debuted. Shocking. Yeah, absolutely. That's the perfect reaction, was shocking. I'm sure they had this planned. Like, how could they not have had this planned? But the question I have for Wonder Woman 3 is, what do you want to see from Wonder Woman 3? I'll start with this one because, we've all three made it pretty clear we're not as invested in the comic book lore of Wonder Woman as a lot of people out there. So I don't know what story to draw from next in the comic books. What I do know is that there are two directions I would like, one of two, preferably both, that I'd like to see 3 go in. One is finally to bring Diana into that modern era, because all we've had so far of Diana in the modern era is Batman v Superman and Justice League, and that's not good enough. I want to see Diana doing her own thing in 2020 something. 2. And this is the one that could go either way. I would like to see a real adventure with the Amazons, because that prologue was so impressive. It was great to see Connie Nielsen and Robin Wright again, especially. And I know they can't really do a present day story with Robin Wright because, obviously they killed her character off in the first film. But like, we got to see a glimpse of the Amazons in Justice League. But again, it's Justice League, and it didn't do them any justice. So yeah, I'd love to see, maybe there can be some heavy flashbacks of Diana with the Amazons in a modern set film, or we could just do a flashback film. I don't know, but the Amazons are just so cool. And Robin Wright is so fun as Antiope. So yeah, let's get some more of that.
I'll go next.
Oh,
Do it.
Okay, sorry. Okay. I honestly would love to see them utilize Linda Carter in the third one because
oh
she
yeah,
makes a cameo at the end of the movie. We said it was spoiler, so I'm saying it.
yeah.
Because she was apparently the warrior woman that had to save Themyscira or whatever, and that was her armor that she was wearing. And I don't know anything about the comic book, but I would love for her to be a villain. Now, not like a villain like Cheetah, where she becomes a villain the whole time, but I honestly would love to see, if it's done right, the twist villain, where she was a villain the whole time and Diana thought she was an ally because she's like this big, huge, kind of like how they did in Up. I know it's a weird movie to draw from, but he is idolizing the guy for the longest time and find out he was a douchebag. So that sort of thing where maybe she was like, oh, I killed all those people, and Diana's like, oh, Amazons don't kill or whatever, and she was like, oh, well, I'm not an Amazon, surprise. I don't know why I did that. She wouldn't have a mask.
I love that.
She does her Wonder Woman spin, but instead of the uniform, it's like a black goth version of it. But I mean, not necessarily that, but I think it would be really interesting to see Linda Carter as the villain of the third movie. Maybe not necessarily a twist villain, or not necessarily the villain the whole time. Maybe she's working with the villain. I don't know. But Linda Carter isn't really known for playing villains. She's known for playing Wonder Woman, obviously. So I think it'd be an interesting direction to take, especially if it's done well. It has to be done well. But the fact that, I mean, I'm 90% sure she'll be coming back for the third movie, because I don't know why they would introduce her in the credits of the second movie if they weren't going to do anything with her. But I think, yeah, making her an ally to Wonder Woman, I think that's the easy way out. But I feel like we're going to bring Steve Trevor back again somehow in the third movie.
I don't think we're going to get Steve Trevor again.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I think I've read somewhere that Chris Pine said that this is it for him.
Okay, good. I mean, I love Chris Pine and Steve Trevor, but they just butchered him in this movie. So
yeah,
he's going to get with the other guy that his body was. I don't know. She doesn't even need a man. I don't even care. But
that's what I was going to say. I'm like, I don't want her. I was like, I would love it if it was not dude romance related in that sense.
Yeah.
I would be okay if it was still on the grieving process of it, because everybody's grieving process is different, and who knows, there could be something that sparks more grieving of that loss.
Maybe Wonder Woman and Linda Carter grieve about the same thing, and since they have different grieving processes, one turns delicious and the other one is more sincere. I don't know. But
yeah.
I would love to see Linda Carter's character as a villain. Whether they do it, however they do it, I just think it'd be really interesting. Maybe people will see it coming. I don't know. But again, if it's done right, it can be done.
I want to just say I just want to say that my thought is now what Andrea said. That's it. That's what I want.
That's what you want.
I want that. I'm pointing because this is where you are on my screen. I have no idea where you are. Okay, great. So I'm like,
right there. You're right there.
Yeah.
It's going to be completely different when I post the recording.
It's great. I'm just going to be
it's
pointing
to be like
the time, right?
Like right now, Catherine, you're just pointing to the bottom of my monitor.
Yeah, what Andrea said. That one. Yeah.
And Andrea, you're just pointing at a blank square beneath you.
I'm pointing at me.
There it is. I love it. I want that. I want Linda Carter. I want not Steve in the picture. Grieving process, totally acceptable. I mean, it'd be kind of fun if maybe Aquaman came into it, but that's solely because of a Wonder Woman poster.
I'd be okay with a cameo, but I don't want him to like help her fight crime.
Right? No, I don't think so. I have this poster. I think it was either from Ben or one of my other friends. It was maybe another friend, but it's of Wonder Woman standing on a cliffside, and both Aquaman and Steve are hanging off of the edge, and she's like, "I can only save one," and so it makes me giggle every time.
I love that.
Oh, Wonder Woman, what's a girl to do?
Yes. I do not remember giving that to you, so it was definitely someone else.
I think it was my friend. I think it was so many other comic book related things, but I don't think it was that one.
So I gasped, not because it's a spoiler, but because I can't believe that we forgot to talk about that period. It was such a great little mid-credits moment that that's another thing that I think a lot of people, even the people who don't like the film, agreed on was, holy hell, it's Linda Carter. That's awesome, because of course, the setup was going to be, she turns around and it's just Gal Gadot again.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was too. Or Kristen Wiig.
So that'd have been a good twist too. And actually would have given us some sort of,
Mhm.
resolution to what happened with her character. But again, yeah, no, Linda Carter has to be in the film. It's just like I've talked with Catherine of this in 2019. Good Lord, that seems like an eternity ago. When we saw Ant-Man, was like, and Michelle Pfeiffer showed up at the end and was like, they have to bring her back for the third film, right? You don't just tease Michelle Pfeiffer at
And
the
then
end of an Ant-Man movie with these cool powers and then be like, oh yeah, no, she got dusted.
she got
She got snapped. Yeah. So here's hoping that Wonder Woman 3 can pull a Ragnarok. Or even just an Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is a good film. You know, I don't know. I mean, again, I have no idea. I'm as clueless about Wonder Woman lore as the rest of you. So I can't say where I want it to go story wise. Just, again, put it in the present. Linda Carter clearly has to be there. Maybe have some Amazon stuff going on. But no matter what, I'm gonna watch it because, as even though this film was a dip from the first one, I still like the character. There's still some fun moments. We didn't even talk about the invisible jet, which was also an awesome scene.
brilliant scene. That was beautiful. That whoever's artistic baby that was, they deserve a box of cookies. That was such a brilliant, beautiful moment. Oh, the invisible jet.
I
Oh,
kind of wanted to see them like flying through the clouds, like just sitting there, like looking like they're on the toilet because you can't.
Oh, like yeah.
Like in Futurama with the invisible, the Nibblers and or not Nibbler, the professor's invisible with Zap and Leela. Anyway, they just sit there. Anyway.
Oh yeah. But yeah, that was a fun scene, and I'm even able to just sort of suspend the disbelief that Steve would be able to pick up on flying that jet as fast as he did, because it was done. It felt so fun, and in the spirit of both the first two films. That was probably the closest you get to No Man's Land, and the only reason it's not as impressive as No Man's Land is because like it's not a defining moment for Diana. That it's just a good scene.
well, yes and no. I mean, let's piggyback off of that where that is, it ends up being the defining moment. That is where she gleans that a belief in herself and the understanding of the connection with air. So it comes back to be a really, really key moment when he sits there. And what I love about that moment is it's so genuine. It's calm, it's genuine, and it's really a nod to true love of, I am just going to sit here and listen to somebody who I really truly care about talk about something that they are unbelievably passionate about. And I'm just going to listen. And then I really truly listen, and it's something that impacts my way of life later on in some other chapter and journey on my way. And when she at the end of the movie talks and repeats what he says about being able to become one with the air, to be able to fly because it's something she couldn't master, I think it's beautiful. And so yeah, I think that scene is so important, and it becomes really Wonder Woman. It's how he continue to build her up.
Okay then.
Mic drop. Boom.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say. Good job.
So that brings us to our closing thoughts. Andrea, let's go your way.
I don't really have anything that I haven't said already. I didn't hate it as much as everyone else did. I didn't think it was that bad. Wasn't great. Wasn't bad. I hope the third one is better. And I like the first one. Gal Gadot is amazing. I love her. Chris Pine is amazing. I love her. Kristen Wiig is amazing. I love her. Pedro Pascal is amazing. I love him. Linda Carter is amazing. I love her. And all the Amazons are amazing too. There's too many to name. But I again wish that I hope the third one is a little bit better, and that the upcoming sequels from the DCEU that I'm sure we will be getting kind of have a different direction than this one went.
It's a learning experience, you know. Again, we like I said earlier, we've been spoiled. We got spoiled by Winter Soldier and Civil War and Ragnarok and the last two Avengers films. So, you know, we've set a bar really high for our sequels. And they did. They tried something. They did try something different with Wonder Woman 84. They didn't go from World War One all the way to modern times. They just fast forwarded a little bit and did another sort of prequel. You know, Marvel didn't do that with any one of their characters. So, you know, you got to try, and sometimes trying means stumbling, and sometimes that means you just got to find your footing and write yourself. So I'm very much looking forward to Wonder Woman 3. Again, more so than most of what is probably going to be coming from DC, depending on what it is they change about things. I think in general, it's a studio that just needs to find its footing. And once they do, maybe we'll finally get the Justice League movie that we deserve, or at least want. Catherine, what do you have to say to close us out?
That I want to rewatch it. I just think that that's something that I really love about this opportunity that you give people through this, you know, through the Sunday matinee, is being able to look at something critically, you know, and not rip it apart, but just get a bunch of people who like movies together to talk about them, to allow us to look at it again and maybe a little bit differently. So I really just want to watch it again now. I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm ready.
I also want to point out to everyone who out there who has and continues to tweet that this is the worst movie of the year. Maybe you should all watch Monster Hunter. Just saying. I haven't seen it myself, but it's the guy who directed the Resident Evil movies, so it can't be that good. All right. So we are going to do our very first trivia of 2021. The slate has been reset. Everyone is at 0. So
who won last time? Who was the winner of the year last year?
Last year, Sarah won with 5. Andrea, you actually came in. You were tied with, I think Gary ended up getting another one on this other episode he was on. So I think you and Gary tied for second place with 2.
Awesome.
And then a lot of people got 1. So, you know, I'm going to use this as like the running joke for this series, but this is going to be Daya's year, everybody. This is it. I'm a terrible friend.
I don't know her that well, so I didn't laugh. I don't know if I'm going to laugh at that.
So this week's trivia is not about Wonder Woman, but it's about 2020 films. Uh-oh. So my question is, what was the highest grossing film at the domestic, just the domestic box office for 2020? So just the US box office. And I'll drop a little bit of a caveat here. Some of these films that I'm talking about were films that were released in 2019, but, you know, carried over into January, February, and obviously post February, the box office just dropped off. So a lot of the best, highest grossing films of 2020 are actually 2019 films. So is it A, Jumanji, The Next Level, B, 1917, C, Sonic the Hedgehog, or D, Bad Boys for Life?
I have no idea.
I feel like it's either 1917 or Sonic, but I'm just trying to think of what Americans like, and that would lead me toward Sonic.
Well, and that's kind of why I want to see Jumanji, because I'm like, what if? I
mean, I didn't see that one, so
I don't know.
Maybe it's Bad Boys for Life, because neither of us think that's
I know, and none of us. Because of the wonderful family inside joke with the title of Jumanji, I'm gonna go with Jumanji, but I'm also gonna cover my face really quick.
I'm gonna guess Sonic the Hedgehog. just because that was my first guess.
Well, you are both incorrect this evening. The correct answer is Bad Boys for Life.
Oh,
So I said we probably Bad Boys for Life because neither of us thought it was going to be
neither of us went with that. I don't even know what that movie is.
sequel to Bad Boys 2.
Oh, okay. I don't. Yeah.
With Will Smith and Martin Lawrence.
Oh, okay. Then yes. Okay. Yeah, but no.
I was
Yeah,
going to
it
guess
was-
Onward, but that wasn't even an option. So
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was in theaters long enough to make a dent.
Which one?
that was the very last movie I saw in theaters.
Onward.
Oh, okay.
I cried.
I did too when I saw it at home. Catherine, actually, that's a good question. I tried. I don't think I ever asked Andrea that question the first time. I tried to ask everyone, what was the last movie that you saw before the pandemic?
What did we see when I was home in December 2019?
Well, that would unfortunately make it Star Wars Episode 9 of The Rise of Skywalker.
Unfortunately.
Pretty sure it was that then.
Yeah, mine was Onward.
And mine, of course, as I've said several times, was King Kong, 1933.
Was that a Fathom Events thing?
It was a Fathom Events thing. I saw it, and then literally about 2 hours after I saw it was when Jay Inslee announced the lockdown and theaters were going to close. And it was like, oh my gosh, I cut it really close. I was super lucky on that one.
Yeah, I need theaters to reopen because I don't like my answer. You know, can we change it?
No, you can't change it. I'm not going to give you. I don't have any more questions. This is absurd. This is not a special Halloween themed episode where I can do that. Okay, so far the score is 0-0.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's only January 3rd. We have a lot of time before December 31st for people to get on the board. But on that note, that is episode 16, the Wonder Woman 1984 Spoilercast. Thank you so much, Andrea, and thank you, Catherine, for joining me on this adventure of comic book proportions. That sounded really lame. So there's more to come. And we'll see what else we're going to talk about for the rest of the year. Hopefully, we'll be talking about more new movies, whether they're streaming on HBO or Disney Plus. I'm sure that hopefully cinemas, possibly by the end of the year. We shall see. I really, really, or we could do the drive-in thing in the summertime when it's not so bad. If that's what it takes to see friggin' Black Widow, then I will drive down to whatever city it is that Skyline's in.
Shelton.
Thank you. and that's going to be it. So that's our episode for the night. So thank you for watching. Happy New Year to everybody. And watch some good films. Watch Wonder Woman if you can. Watch Soul if you can. That'll probably come up on our best worst of 2020 episode next week because Soul's good. It's Pixar, of course. It's good. So yeah, on that note, everybody, have a good evening.